The fire was still finding its rhythm when my phone lit up. The cabin smelled like pine and varnish and a life I'd earned inch by inch. Outside, snow whispered against glass. Inside, silence finally knew my name. Like, comment, and subscribe Huna Stories for more stories. Then my father's voice cut through it. Move to the attic, he said. No greeting, no congratulations. The whole family's coming. We need the bedrooms. If you don't welcome us, you'll be dead to this family. I stared at the flames as if they'd misheard him for me. Dead to this family. It landed softly, the way a guillotine lands softly when it's well oiled. I didn't answer. He hung up. The fire snapped. The house listened. I thought of the years before this moment, the 80-hour weeks that left my hands shaking on Sundays, the spreadsheets and night trains and stale coffee that tasted like ambition. I thought of the day I signed the papers, and the agent shook my hand like I'd crossed a border without a passport. This place was supposed to be quiet. My family had never forgiven quiet. We weren't always like this. That's the lie people tell themselves to survive. I remember the first house we shared. Thin walls, thinner patience. I learned early that love came with conditions and receipts. Like, comment, and subscribe Huna Stories for more stories. I learned that success was communal until it wasn't, that boundaries were an insult, that gratitude was a currency you never finished paying. When I left for my first job, my father told me not to get ideas. When I worked late, my mother said I was forgetting where I came from. When I sent money home, it was expected. When I didn't, it was remembered. They taught me loyalty by withholding it. Still, I tried. I always tried because hope is a stubborn thing, and family teaches you to confuse it with duty. The changes came quietly, a shift in tone, requests that sounded like commands, jokes sharpened into expectations. You're lucky, they'd say, like luck had filled my lungs and stayed up all night with me. When I bought the mountain house, I told them after the ink dried. I told them with a laugh, like a peace offering. There was a pause on the line. Then my sister asked how many bedrooms it had. That's when I knew. I didn't scream, I didn't plead, I didn't explain that the attic was unfinished, that the bedrooms were modest, that this was my first night of rest in a decade. I did what I've always done when the stakes get real. I planned. I poured a drink I'd been saving. I walked the house. I listened to the floors creak like they were clearing their throats. I opened my laptop and pulled up documents I'd kept neat and ready, because survival had trained me to keep receipts. If they wanted to play family, I'd host. I started with logistics. I sent a group message. Can't wait to see you all come Friday. No emojis. Let anticipation do the work. Then I called the county office. Zoning, occupancy, short-term rental rules. I read until the words stopped being words and became levers. I emailed my attorney. Simple question, simple answer. I forwarded it to myself and printed it. I booked a caterer for Saturday night, a photographer for Sunday morning. Like, comment, and subscribe Huna Stories for more stories. I told them it was a reunion. I didn't lie. I ordered locks, smart ones, the kind that remember, and I prepared the attic. Not a bed, a chair, a heater, a box with old photo albums I'd borrowed years ago and never returned. Memory is a powerful draft. They arrived like weather. Cars lined the drive, doors slammed, laughter spilled into the cold air, loud and entitled. My father stepped out last, surveying the place like he'd built it with his own hands. He hugged me with one arm. His eyes went to the windows. "Good," he said. "You did well." I smiled, calm, controlled, the kind of smile that doesn't show its work. Inside, I handed out keys one by one. They tested doors, they claimed rooms, they moved my things without asking, like muscle memory. Then my father reached for his. It didn't work. He frowned, tried again. I met his eyes. "Attic," I said. The word hung there, heavy with symmetry. He laughed. Then he didn't. "Don't be cute." "I'm not," I said. "I'm hosting." I guided him up the stairs. The attic door opened to the chair, the heater, the box. Light pulled on dust. "What is this?" he asked. "Perspective," I said. "Sit." He didn't, so I did. I opened the box and slid the albums across the floor, pages filled with faces and hands and moments he'd forgotten he owed me. I read your message aloud, I said, calm as snowfall. I kept it. I keep everything. His jaw tightened. Downstairs, the caterer arrived, the house filled with the smell of food and the sound of confusion. I stood. Dinner in 10. The confrontation didn't explode, it unfolded. At the table, I placed printed pages beside each plate. Zoning limits, occupancy caps, a highlighted clause about unauthorized guests, another about trespassing. My sister laughed until she read. My mother stared at her hands. "This is my house," I said softly. "You're welcome as guests, not as owners." My father stood. "You wouldn't." "I would," I said, "and I have." I nodded to the photographer who clicked at the moment my father realized the cameras weren't for nostalgia. "You threatened me," I said, "so I prepared. If I'm dead to this family, then consider this an estate planning meeting." Silence does a lot of work when you let it. They left that night, not all at once. One by one, keys returned, apologies rehearsed and swallowed. My father stayed in the attic until morning. He didn't sleep. Sunday came clear. I watched them go from the porch. The mountains stood where they always had, unimpressed by bloodlines. Inside, the house breathed again. I changed the locks, I archived the photos, I poured the last of the drink. I didn't feel sad. I felt light, like something old and heavy had finally decided to stop pretending it belonged to me. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes, for the first time in your life, the quiet stays. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe Huna Stories for more stories.